The thing I don't understand is, I mean, I was watching Dispatches the other night. I know there's been some criticism. I haven't fact-checked it myself. But they talked about 8 to 9 million people unemployed
Absolutely.
in this country.
Yeah, that's Fraser Nelson's documentary.
Yeah. And if we're flooding the country with migrants to fill these jobs, there seems to be an obvious alternative solution to filling these positions.
Do you know how much we're paying on welfare in this country?
Is it... I thought it was in it. Was it like 60 billion?
Keep going. 90 billion.
90 billion.
We are spending more on welfare
than education.
Than defense. Think about that.
Well, I mean,
Russia, China, North Korea, we are spending more keeping people on benefits, on our benefit system, than defense.
Yeah, the defense doesn't worry me too much because I think we're such a small fuck nation anyway. If a war kicks off, we're going to need the protection of bigger countries.
But in terms of national priorities, it sends a message.
Well, I always look to education. The education is my benchmark, so I know we spend more on debt interest than education.
Yeah.
Now you're saying we spend more on welfare than education. I always look at education. Yeah. That to me is like, that is the future. That's where we should be. Okay, so...
But just on the debt point, this goes back, this is really, this is the benefit of a long-form conversation because this, again, wouldn't come up. Most people don't even mention debt in Westminster discussions. But again, it's a legacy of the left-right consensus. Nobody really was saying during the 2010s, well, in the second half of the 2010s through COVID, what's going to happen when all this debt becomes more expensive? So now where we are is not only have we got a debt-to-GDP ratio of 100, 101%, and people say, it doesn't matter, it's all relative. Look at France, they're really fucked. But actually, it really matters because we are spending billions in interest payments on our debt, which is billions we can't spend on the NHS. We can't spend on education. I mean, it is bonkers.
This is the thing that drives me mad. Than anything
Sorry,
else.
125%.
Yeah. And I know that 135% is our event horizon. I mean, the numbers might change now, but historically, this is just from my friend Lynn Alden. She says of the 52 countries that have hit 135% debt to GDP, only one has not had a currency default, which is Japan, which is pretty much fucked. Like, you always end up with a currency default. It's the thing that makes me most angry. I know what the issue is. They cannot control spend. And you have a limitation on taxation, but kind of borrowing more money is easy. It's kind of, people don't really understand it. They don't really understand not enough people understand that's going to drive inflation. It is actually the most, I think, one of the most evil taxes. This is why I think we need this absolute kind of like cutthroat approach to government. We need what they're doing with Doge in the US.
Absolutely.
This is bonkers. This is the stuff that drives. This is why I keep all my money in Bitcoin.
But to be blunt, even if you were to apply Doge to the UK and you were going to say, okay, it's crazy that we've got 500 quangos in this country, quasi-autonomous, non-elected government organizations, right? It's kind of the blob. Call it the blob. So you could slash that by 50%. You could rewire Whitehall. You could make it more efficient, leaner.
Yep.
But it's not going to deal with the debt problem. You're going to clear some waste.
Yeah.
We need basically, I know what you're saying. Yeah. We don't just need to reform the institutions. We need a counter elite, right? We have an elite class that has no serious opposition, right? From the Treasury to number 10 to the business class, they basically all think the same. And where I think we need to go is where Trump is going now. Compare Trump 1 and Trump 2. Trump 1 was not a disaster, but it wasn't great because they couldn't control the corridors of power. They had all these ideas, but then Trump came in and realized, actually, if you can't control the levers of power and the offices of state, you're not going to get anything done. Trump 2 has recognized that the first order problem in Western democracies is the state and who controls the state. The second order problems are mass migration, the economy, violent Islamism, geopolitical tensions, whatever. They're all second order problems. The first order problem is reforming, reconfiguring the state and making it responsive to ordinary people. Now, in Britain, if we're right that Britain is going to go where America's going, who in the political class, media class, is even making that argument that we need to fundamentally rewire the state, the British state, gut the waste, change the thinking, push back against this consensus that's governed this country for 30 years, right? Have a completely different approach to managing the corridors of power so that the institutions actually work for the forgotten majority. That's what we need. That's what we need in this country, is a counter elite, not just another conservative leader who appoints exactly the same people that Boris Johnson had around him. Like, forget that. That's not going to work. Everybody knows that's not going to work. We need a completely different counter elite, like a new elite.